Montana's news leader, this is the MTN 530 News.
I'm Brandon Warren, and coming up, I'll tell you whether or not you can start your fall planting.
I'm Shannon Newth in Great Falls. Coming up, You're Hired. A program is helping teens and young adults get ready for the workforce.
And as Montana prepares to add an additional congressional seat, we take a closer look at where the two new districts may land. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us on your Labor Day holiday. I'm Jeanelle Slade. Those stories in just a moment, but first tonight. We begin with a red flag warning now blanketing the region as smoke fills the air, and that smoke is more of a mixed bag this evening, with some coming from fires around Montana and the other portion moving in from fires out of state. At this hour, there are 50 active fires burning in Montana. 4 of those started in the last 24 hours. That's about half as many fires compared to peak fire season when numbers reached nearly 100. 12 of the current fires have burned more than 10,000 acres. The state's largest wildfire right now, the Woods Creek fire in the Big Belt Mountains, is now 90% contained. Those flames sparked on July 10th and have burned more than 55,000 acres. Now, since the beginning of the year, more than 2,200 wildfires have sparked across the state. And to bring us the latest details around our fire outlook, Q2 meteorologist Ed McIntosh has been busy in the weather center today.
That's right, a lot to talk about. Let's start off. You mentioned the red flag warnings, Jeanelle, and those will be into effect for much of the area until at least the end of the newscast, but things will start to back off a little bit. Where we're going to see a bigger problem through the evening, air quality, especially through northern Wyoming. Now, the smoke is still widespread across areas of southern Montana. That's the red shaded areas, but as that cold front punches throughout the evening hours, it'll divert some of the smoke that's been moving in, including those fires in southwest Montana, to mainly areas around Butte, Bozeman. But more of the smoke does start to move in, so we get a little break tomorrow and then some changes once again. We'll take a closer look at the forecast coming up in just a few minutes, so stick around.
Well, today, millions of people lose a benefit that helped them get through the pandemic. Almost 9 million Americans will no longer receive unemployment benefits. The end of the program follows the expiration of the eviction moratorium. One of President Biden's economic advisors says there are no plans to reevaluate the benefits. Labor Secretary Marty Walsh says the economy is in better shape than it was a year ago, and it's ready for a shift forward.
In the next 2 weeks, Montanans will be submitting proposed maps for our state's 2 new congressional districts for 2022. The first step toward a 5-member commission drawing the actual boundaries by November. But here at MTN News, we've been doing some map drafting of our own, looking at possible proposals that could come before the commission. Tonight, we give you a sneak preview of these plans and what some of the redistricting commissioners think of them. Most district drawers are looking at an eastern and western district, somewhat similar to what we had 30 years ago before we lost a district and became a single statewide district. But if you draw a dividing line similar to the prior old 2 districts stretching from Glacier County in the north down to Yellowstone Park, that western district will have almost 616,000 people, which is 74,000 too many, because the 2 districts must be roughly equal in population. So, how to fix that? One possibility is putting most of Helena and Lewis and Clark County into the Eastern District, making things almost even population-wise. Or you could split off parts of Bozeman, or put all of Gallatin County into the Eastern District, and then most of Great Falls into the Western District. But Districting and Apportionment Commissioner Joe Lamson, a Democrat, says these proposals create 2 Republican-leaning districts, and that he wants to create 1 district that is competitive between the 2 major political parties.
We heard loud and strong for Montanans that when it came to the congressional districts, they would like one of those districts to be competitive.
Republican Commissioner Dan Stusik says making 1 district politically competitive is discretionary and should not be a top priority.
That is not one of the Commission's mandatory criteria, nor is it in our Montana Constitution or state law. And in fact, the concept of competitiveness inherently requires you to look at political data, which, as the public well knows, is what people use to gerrymander districts.
A proposal Democrats are eyeing is making Flathead County and Kalispell part of the Eastern District. You're left with a southwestern Montana seat, which would include Missoula, Butte, Hamilton, and Bozeman. To even up the population between the 2 districts, though, you'd have to add Jefferson, Broadwater, Park, Sweetgrass, and Stillwater counties to the Western District. Or if you want to put Flathead, Lincoln, and Sanders counties into this so-called Eastern District, you add Great Falls and Cascade County to the Southwestern District and drop the Jefferson to Sweetgrass link. In both of these plans, the Southwestern District is almost evenly split among Democratic and Republican-leaning voters.
We tend to favor districts that keep Gallatin, Helena, Missoula, Butte, Silver Bow, sort of that area that has a lot of common interests. I assure you, this is not going to be a deep, dark blue district. It's going to be a competitive district. It means it's going to be 50-50, and then the voters will decide whether they want to, which candidate they want to have represent them in Congress.
Stusik, however, says he doubts that's something that he or voters in northwestern Montana would support.
I think that would sacrifice elements of compactness and would inherently be a kind of gerrymandering and much different from what Montana has historically seen in our congressional districts to reach a political goal.
And there's another possibility that may or may not be considered, creating a South and North Montana district. A North district could include Kalispell, Missoula, Great Falls, and Helena, while the Southern district could stretch from Hamilton all the way to Sidney and include Billings and Bozeman. Politically speaking, these two are decidedly Republican-leaning districts. The 5-member commission will pick several finalist plans on October 5th to consider, and after public hearings, make its decision just 25 days later. It may come down to a tie-breaking vote by the commission's nonpartisan chairwoman. At the Capitol, Mike Dennison, MTN News.
Nights are getting colder and many are wondering whether or not they can start their fall planting.
Whenever you're ready to switch over, it's a good time. Kale, pansies, mums, anytime now. There again, trees and shrubs it's a great time to plant them.
If your plants are in a pot instead of in the ground, they will need to be brought inside or covered whenever it freezes. You should also think about fertilizing your lawn before the end of the season.
One thing about this year that you need to also keep in mind is we had a really hard summer, really dry summer. Good idea to take a hose out and deep soak your trees and your shrubs. Even older established trees need that deep soaking because it's just been a really hard, dry year. So down in the ground is very, very dry.
If your lawn is looking thin, now is a good time to reseed it. And if you're looking to add a little color to your yard, now's a good time to do that as well.
A really good time to plant bulbs now. Really nice time to plant them now so that in the spring they'll start coming up. If you plant them in the spring, then you don't necessarily end up with the good blooming like you would now if you plant them. You can do daffodils and tulips and all kinds of things.
Shelley says you shouldn't stop watering your lawn until it starts to turn brown on its own.
In Billings, Brandon Warren, MTN News.
Nearly everywhere you look, you can find "We're hiring" signs, from fast food to retail and even corporate offices. Companies are recruiting new workers. One program in Great Falls is helping teens and young adults prepare for the workforce and fill some of those vacancies.
Welcome to Opportunities Incorporated. How can I help you?
18-year-old Brooke Thill works at Opportunities, Inc.
I come every day. Sometimes I will come earlier than what I'm supposed to because I love this office so much, and I answer the phones and hope customers come in and answer their questions.
She's one of the teens involved in the Youth Employment Program, teaching 16 to 24-year-olds workforce skills. Skills that may seem simple but go a long way in work and life.
Showing up to work, showing up on time, making sure you're there every day, how to dress when you go to work, how to talk when you're at work. Just things like, interacting with your coworkers. If you have a disagreement with a coworker, how do you overcome that? If you have a disagreement with your boss, how do you overcome that?
Some of the teens and young adults in the program have struggled with the law or school. Some have dropped out, others live with anxiety or just need a little encouragement.
Well, I initially got involved with it because I've always I always had a hard time trying to find a job that could fit my needs and not be so claustrophobic and so overworked. They understand where people like me come from because they work with them all the time, and they can understand their needs and put them where they would work best in the program.
The Youth Employment Program focuses on helping participants in all areas of life, from housing needs to educational milestones and financial literacy. The young adults are encouraged to dream big and set goals.
I've always wanted to become like a beautician and go on to do hair and makeup. Eventually they'll help with that, but right now they're just teaching me how to work in a working environment and get a feel for what it is going to be like out there in that job.
The pandemic hasn't slowed the program down at all. In fact, Jeff says they've seen an uptick in the number of participants. And in an age of abundance of hiring signs, Opportunities is teaching the younger generation the value of hard work.
To be self-sustaining and to have a place to live, and you need to work hard, and we really push that, to be hard workers wherever they go, not just come and get a paycheck.
Opportunities encourages all teens and young adults up to the age of 24 to submit an application. In Great Falls, Shannon Newth, MTN News.
Still to come on your early MTN News here on Q2, a piece of 9/11 history found in a box is now being shared with the world.
The MTN 530 News continues right after this.